This day has been given to us. Beyond anything we could create or earn, whether deserved or undeserved, we receive this day as a gift from the universe, a gift from God, a gift from life itself. So come and let us worship with gratitude for this and so many gifts, with humility for our shortcomings and with resilience for the struggles ahead. And let us gather with hope that we will continue to transform our lives and to transform our world. Some mornings are like that. And welcome to the Unitarian Church of Baton Rouge. I am Reverend Eric Poza, interim minister. It is good to be together this morning, even when the gathering is virtual, as it is today. And I'm glad to be joined here at our church building by our music director, Lee Hartman, and by Mike Patton, helping us with our technical and streaming services as we offer you this virtual worship service. We are glad that you've joined us this morning. And as we prepare to enter into this time of worship, we also note that there is much happening. Even though the building may be closed, the church is open. And there are a number of things coming up. I'll just briefly note two. We do have Friday Fun Night, a couple Friday nights a month, and there's one coming up this Friday night, and that's going to be playing Pictionary together. And we also have several adult classes that are going to be starting in October, where we have a class entitled Faith Like a River, a Unitarian Universalist history class, and a class on how we can build the beloved community for those in the LGBTQ community. The class, of course, is open for all to take part in. We also will have family faith development starting for parents of preschoolers. There's clearly so much happening. And there's one other to note, and for that one, I'll turn things over to my colleague, Reverend Nathan Ryan.
Oh, hello there. Don't mind me. I'm just lighting a chalice right here in the window. Not liturgically, this is just an announcement. We need you for this upcoming Sunday, not today, but the following Sunday, so the 27th. We need as many either photos of a candle in your window. I did this just for the sake of videoing, but candle in the window, or a video of you lighting a candle in a window, hopefully with a better backdrop than this. This is just the other side of my sadness corner. We need you to send those in. Email the church office, email it to me. We need those by the 27th. We're going to use them in a worship service October 4th. So once again, light a candle. Doesn't have to be a chalice, but if you've got your chalice, that's great. Or this is a great excuse to construct one. In a window for our use on October 4th. So we need it by September 27th. Great seeing you. Enjoy the service.
One fine day, Pooh had stumped up to the top of the forest to see if his friend Christopher Robin was interested in bears at all. Christopher Robin was sitting outside his door, putting on his big boots. As soon as he saw the big boots, Pooh knew that an adventure was going to happen. So he brushed the honey off of his nose with the back of his paw, spruced himself up as well as he could so as to look ready for anything.
Good morning, Christopher Robin.
Hello, Pooh Bear. I can't seem to get this boot on.
That's bad.
Do you think you could barely kindly lean against me? Because I keep pulling so hard that I fall over backwards.
Pooh sat down, dug his feet into the ground, and pushed as hard as he could against Christopher Robin's back. And Christopher Robin pushed as hard as he could against Pooh, and he pulled and pulled until he had got the boot on.
And that's that. What do we do next?
Christopher Robin got up and brushed the dirt off of himself and said,
We are all going on an expedition. Thank you, Pooh.
Going on an expedition? I don't think I've ever been on one of those. Where are we going on this expedition?
Expedition, silly old bear. It has an X in it.
Oh, I know.
but Pooh really didn't know.
We're going to discover the North Pole.
Oh, I see. Are bears any good at discovering it?
Of course they are. And Rabbit and Kanga and all of you, it's an expedition. That's what an expedition means. A long line of everybody. You better tell the others to get ready, and we all must bring provisions.
Bring what?
Things to eat.
Oh, I thought you said provisions. I'll go tell them. My thanks to Kathy Smith and Grace Cotto for the assistance with that lesson. We take time to share stones, placing them in our chalice, the symbol of our freely covenanted faith, to mark milestones in our lives. A few in particular: speedy recovery wished for Betty Powers following surgery. Thinking about Becky Cureau as her nephew, Marcel Pratt, has entered hospice. And we have learned of the death of Leon Kenyon. If you at home have a reason for placing a stone, a person for placing one too, type that into the chat of our video now, and I'll place the stones for you. And one final stone for those not expressed but held in our hearts. As we light the flame in our chalice, with the words, "With hope to make this a better world," we light this flame Its light is a symbol of the power of love.
From all that dwell below the skies, let songs of hope and faith arise. Let peace, goodwill on earth be sung, through every land, by every tongue.
Some nights, when I'm away from home, I find myself restless. There's a deep ache for those quiet comforts of the place I know best, the place where I dwell. I remember this one Thursday night in particular. It was 15 years ago now, and it was one where the absence of that familiar, that easy silence was weighing heavily on me. I laid down on an uncomfortable hospital bed that night, and I tossed and turned for a while before finally a fitful sleep came. After all, even on the best of nights, sleep does come slowly when I'm in an unfamiliar bed. And this was just my second night, my second time on call as a chaplain at a hospital in the suburbs between Dallas and Fort Worth. It was my first ministry after ordination in seminary. But even as I laid down that night, I knew the evening was going to end early. I'd been warned what was going to happen. And sure enough, just a few hours later, I got that proverbial 3 a.m. phone call. It actually was at about 3 a.m. that summoned me to the emergency room. For the first patients were arriving from New Orleans. They were evacuees in the wake of the federal floods triggered by Hurricane Katrina earlier that week. Soon I found myself standing between the beds of two men, both of whom just 12 hours earlier had been carried out of the Superdome. They were placed on ambulances Thursday afternoon, not knowing where it was that they were going. One of the men asked me what city he was in, and he didn't just mean which suburb. They hadn't even told him which state. I'm not criticizing him. I simply was surprised that no one had at the Superdome or on the ambulance let him know where it was he was going. But what surprised me most was the intensity with which both of the men focused on the cable news that was on the TV in their hospital ward. It was filled with images of New Orleans and the flooding. I would have thought that would have been the last thing they would want to see, until one of them explained to me that no news had gotten to them inside the Superdome. They hadn't heard anything about how the city overall had been affected. So it was just then, several days later and 500 miles away, that they were hearing for the first time of the destruction of the lower Ninth Ward, the neighborhood where one of the men lived, or had lived. Hearing for the first time the devastation of so many other neighborhoods, the overwhelming failure of emergency agencies to provide assistance, all of those many reasons why so many here in southern Louisiana have come to refer to the events as the federal floods, more often than by the hurricane's name. New Orleans, as best anyone could tell at the time, was coming apart at the seams, and they had to go to the next state to learn how bad it was. Of course, there are so many of you here who know these stories of displacement from the federal floods far better than I do. I've already talked with 2 different families here at this church that had moved here from New Orleans right after the floods, and so many others who resettled even farther away. Those stories of relocation post-Katrina, after the federal floods, those are stories that remind me that sometimes when we set out on a journey, we have little idea where the journey will end. Most journeys, of course, have an obvious ending. We come back home. But what of those journeys for which no destination is set? Where we look forward to a new home at the other end, like that of the Israelites traveling to the Promised Land? Or what of those journeys that lead us to think of home in a new way? The ones that change how we understand what coming home means. It's a story rich with meaning, which I'll explore shortly. I invite us now into the time of deeper sharing, a time of prayer and silent reflection. So I invite you to sit back and let yourself reach deep within. Reach far beyond yourself to connect with what you know as sacred. Let us pray. Spirit of life and of love, God known by so many names and mystery that transcends all names, as we come together in this virtual space, are grateful for the freedom and the privilege that allows us to do so, and for so many others that we enjoy as well, even as we seek to extend the blessings of justice to all around us. And we do so anxious at times, and many of us, particularly in this time, that justice may not always be served, and may be served less well than we've known before. The death of a Supreme Court justice reminds us of the fragility of our freedoms, of the justice that we hold so dear. But we are called to find ever new ways to support and work for a society, a beloved community that truly is more just for all. And so may we continue to be inspired. So may it be for us all. Amen.
From the Reverend Burton Carley. I want to be counted among these people, strangers in a strange land, seeking the way to a home not yet built, faithful to a vision of a better dwelling place, faithful to the power that comes from we know not where, that gives us dreams to guide us home, faithful to the power that stirs our imagination to reveal the way home. Clearly, such a journey that does not guarantee one's arrival, is strengthened if one can see the promise of home and greet it from afar. That is our need. To acknowledge that we are exiles and even strangers among ourselves, and to take heart, to see the promise of home, to give out our lives to find the way there, to give in to the power that calls us there, and to give up the habits of distraction, abstraction, and preoccupation that keeps us from being on our way.
Not be all
just heard, and my thanks to George Judy for delivering it. It was written by Reverend Burton Carley. He's Minister Emeritus of a congregation that is just up the river from us. In fact, it's called the Church of the River in Memphis. He delivered this lecture to a gathering of Unitarian Universalist ministers in the year 2005. It was just 2 months before Hurricane Katrina hit. And later in the same lecture, he offered further reflection on metaphorical journeys. He said this: "Here is another way we get lost. How we tend to misconstrue or oversimplify the metaphor of the journey. There are all kinds of journeys. There is a journey that is a seeking, and there is a journey that is a fleeing. There is a journey that is a homeless meandering, and a journey that is a going toward and an arriving. There is a journey that causes us to bear witness to what is true, and a journey that is an escape from the truth." Now, this language of the journey, it's one of the most frequently used metaphors in contemporary Unitarian Universalism. And if that surprises you or if you doubt it, just remember the front cover of our teal hymnal, Singing the Journey. Because in our liberal and open faith tradition, we do reject conformity of belief. We accept the reality of change. Well, at least on an abstract level, we do. And we like exploring new ideas, sometimes. But is our spiritual religious journey only about tourism? Is it just traveling for the sake of experiencing new places and new ideas as we pass? Or is there a goal, a purpose, a destination to our journey of faith that is separate from the journeying itself? Reverend Carley wastes little time giving his answer. The journey, he adds, is not all. The purpose of the journey is to arrive somewhere. Casting the religious life as constant journey is as debilitating to spiritual maturity as fear of leaving home. The fugitive life is an exhausting one. Though it celebrates freedom, it is not truly free. So journeying without a destination, with no sense of home, has clear problems. But what about this metaphor of coming home, or going home? That might sound to you like you use should be expected to arrive at the same conclusions, to hold the same beliefs. Not so. No, this is a home that we have yet to build. We may know that we have a destination, but have only a vague notion of its distance or direction. We might set out to discover the North Pole, but all we know about it is that it's something you discover. What we do know as Unitarian Universalists is that even the most liberal of churches exists for the sake of something other than, in addition to, just itself. More than the sakes of its individual members as individuals. It's true, of course, that our personal understandings of what is greater than us is going to differ from one another. The 12-step communities call this our higher power or the God of our understanding. And they use this language with the goal of making clear that it doesn't have to be the God of somebody else's understanding that we're expected to embrace. And indeed, some of us Unitarian Universalists are going to understand what is greater than us in the most naturalistic and humanistic ways imaginable. Other UUs will use the most mystical language you could fathom to describe it. But having individual understandings does not mean we should be individualistic, whether it's nature, humanity, the spirit of life, or the God of love. Whatever it is that's greater than us, it ain't just us.
So when we do differ about where we will travel, we might still agree toward what we will travel. Put simply, what is home? That might sound like an absurd way of saying it, but by defining it and clarifying it, we may find some insights into this yet-to-be-built spiritual home that we seek even amidst our differences. And three qualities of home stand out. One is that home is the place where we are most free to be ourselves and to become who we aspire to be. It's where we engage our own gifts and pursue our own passions. Also, home is the place where we welcome people. This, I understand, is less true for most of us now in the COVID era. But at its best, home can be the place where we are helping others to feel welcome. And that can be an enriching experience for us as well as for them. And home is where we get ready. It's where we prepare ourselves for the tasks at hand and prepare ourselves to encounter the larger world outside our doors. I did not bring these clothes that I'm wearing now here and dress myself in the church. I did not write this sermon in some coffee shop. All of that preparation work I did at home. So think for a minute about what home means for you and what the implications of journeying home might mean for our church. We'll talk about it in a few minutes.
There is so much happening in our world that calls our attention. There is so much happening in the community around us that calls our attention. And attending to it means more than looking. It means finding the right ways for us to act, to make our values manifest. And doing so as individuals, good though it is as far as it goes, does only go so far. There is a power to working collectively and to organizing our resources for the greater good at its best, and has been so often the case here at this church. That has been a goal lived out well. And for it to continue to be lived out well requires us to continue gathering and organizing and pooling our resources. And it's in that spirit that I invite you to give generously. If you would donate to this church, you may go to our church website and click the link to give near the top of the page, or you can send a text message to this number, 833-796-0353. That's 833-796-0353. Text the word assist to that number. And in this way, the offering is now gratefully received.
When Pharaoh let the people go, God did not lead them by the way of the land of the Philistines, although that was nearer, for God thought, if the people face war, they may change their minds and return to Egypt. So God led the people by the roundabout way of the wilderness toward the Red Sea. The Lord went in front of them in a pillar of cloud by day to lead them along the way, and in a pillar of fire by night to give them light, so that they may travel by day and by night. Neither the pillar of cloud by day nor the pillar of light by night left its place in front of the people.
Let us pause in life's pleasures and count its many tears while we all stop sorrow.
This period of transition here at the Unitarian Church of Baton Rouge feels long to several of you. I've heard a few of you say it directly to me, have heard a few others say things that seem to indicate you concur, and I've no doubt there's others I've not yet heard from. It makes sense. You've had a long tenured previous minister, and you've had multiple interim ministers. Put the two together, and the contrast seems even stronger here than it would in other congregations. Add a global pandemic on top of that, and it's no surprise that some people are feeling overwhelmed by the amount of transition that's happened. I imagine a few of you might even relate on some level to these stories of the people of Israel wandering through the desert, not totally sure they're ever going to find a promised land, maybe not even sure it exists, and not even having the pillars of smoke and flame to guide our way. The concerns make sense. They truly do. And I can't buy into them completely, if only because in this metaphor of the journey, these times of interim ministry can be journeys of self-discovery for congregations, and often are exactly that. Times when you come to learn and experience directly how your church home is not defined by any one person, not even a particular minister, but can help us all to see that we build together our spiritual home as a congregation. You form it together for yourselves and for others. Build that future of what this church will be. And I strongly suspect that over time, you're going to be able to look back during this transition period as a time that you did discern new ways of becoming that future home and making it a spiritual home for those who have yet to join you, as well as yourselves, by discerning together those three qualities of home I described earlier. What kind of religious community do you strive to be? How do you welcome others warmly into this church? And which tasks do you need to do to get there? In other words, who are your neighbors? Who are you? And what are you called to do? The church consultants Gil Rendell and Alice Mann articulated those three questions years ago, and they've guided countless congregations, Unitarian Universalist and others, in discerning collectively and planning for their future. When a congregation engages in deep conversation around these questions, it can come to a more full understanding of what it does, in other words, of its mission. The conversation offers greater insight into that unifying sense of mission that drives the ministry of the church forward. And while this is more than a mission statement, re-articulations of mission statements, such as you had just a few months ago with my immediate predecessor, Reverend Joel Miller, can help you get there. In your case, it helped you articulate the holy why: to love, connect, transform. With these three words, these three motivating factors to answer the questions, you can deepen and enrich your sense of the religious journey that you as a church are undertaking, not just by having new words, but by allowing them to guide your actions. When you find yourself discerning, what's the way forward to us? Pausing to ask, all of the choices we're looking at, which ones are going to help us love more deeply, connect more richly, transform more fully? This is about how to form that long line of everybody that sets off to discover the North Pole, wherever it may be. It's a shared exploration that can give you, if not exact directions home, at least a strong sense of how to find that spiritual home together and how to inhabit and dwell in it. You can form your identity, you can clarify your purpose and name your context in ways that give shape and give depth to your mission of journeying toward that spiritual home. This journey is no joyride or sightseeing trip. And unlike so many New Orleanians 15 years ago who had to rush to escape the federal floods, this is a journey that you can undertake truly as a setting forth to the promised land, a renewed basis from which to live our Unitarian Universalist faith collectively here in Baton Rouge. By sharing with one another these holy words, this holy why that has emerged from you collectively and can guide each of you in finding together that elusive sense of homecoming. When the holy conversation is complete, when the mission has entered more deeply into the consciousness of the congregation, you can find, build, and become that home where you do live more fully into being who you say you are, where souls grow deep as well as wide, where you welcome strangers as honored guests, and where you prepare to meet the larger world outside your doors. It's not just your new ministry to come, but your renewed sense of clarity and purpose that can light the way for all those who are searching for a vital and an affirming faith community in this church. So the time is set, the roadmap is laid out, and there's a healthy restlessness that grows strong. Let's pack and prepare for this journey together, not only to reach a new home, but to be a new home. I'm not sure where the adventure is going to take us and what adventures await, but the destination will be oh so sweet. So may it be for us all. Amen.
And so as we go forth from this sacred time in the many sacred places where we've gathered, let us go forth graced with blessings of freedom, of wholeness, and knowing that though our worship may end, our service begins yet anew. Let us go forth and find ever more ways to serve this hurting world in the spirit of love. Go in peace.